Let's start with the question. How do I minimize heat generation? I'm looking to get as up close and personal as I can with certain hot stellar bodies. As such, I know I'll want to pack plenty of AFMUs and heat sinks. But I would really prefer to avoid using those if I can. So, how do I build a ship that runs as cool as possible? What selection criteria should I use for each module to ensure that it generates a bare minimum amount of heat? Are there certain modules that don't generate heat at all? Or specific attributes of a module that can be ignored? Are there certain ships that naturally run cooler? Is this due to some arbitrary value associated with the specific ship? Or is it a general design element of the default build which could be replicated on other ships with proper module selection? So how can we solve this? There are two possible answers. Answer 1. Adding to Zweitwolf's answer, different ships have drastically different heat characteristics. For example, the Diamondback line of ships run very cool. The Federal dropship also appears to have good heat management, although it has an abominable jump range. You can find a table of small ship heat characteristics here. Additionally, you can reduce your heat buildup by turning off unneeded modules, like weapons, SRV bays, and especially your shields. Shields in particular generate a lot of heat. In general, the more power a module uses, the more heat it produces. This only applies to passive heat generation, not e.g. shield cell banks or railguns firing, which produce a lot more heat when used. Answer 2. Here are some partial answers to your questions, to the best of my knowledge. Note that I did not do any testing and these answers are based on my overall experience in-game. Regarding modules, you need to choose those that have the lowest power draw. As more power draw generate more heat. Usually, low-class small modules and lower-grade EDC means less power draw, thus less heat. The only exception to this rule that I know of is the power plant module. The power plant has a heat efficiency factor % which is smaller with better grade. What this means is that heat generated by your ship will be reduced by this factor. So even if the high-grade power plant has more power draw than a lesser grade one, the lower heat factor will tip the scales for itself and the other modules. On top of power draw, some modules like the frame shift drive and thermal weapons have a thermal load, which means they generate additional heat when used. If a module has a power draw, it produces heat. Therefore, a module like the cargo rack, which has no power draw, will not produce heat. Simply put, if your only goal is to fly over a long period of time while producing the less possible heat, you want a ship with the lowest class, smallest in size, and lowest grade modules, except the best grade power plant. Also turn off all modules which you don't need while you're flying. Regarding your last question, I've heard different ships have different heat capacity and cooling speed. But I didn't test it myself and neither have I verified my sources. This one would remain to be answered. I hope these answers helped, and if they did, please drop a comment and subscribe.